Okay, so it takes a couple of seconds for the audio to kick in. I want to welcome everybody. I'm Jerry Stengel. I'm the president of Engineer, and I'm the host of today's session. I'm delighted to have Maria Semple on with us today. She is a good friend, and actually we're going to be doing a series of presentations on how to use LinkedIn on fundraising for the Association of Fundraising Professionals, and we're doing it in Connecticut and Westchester, and hopefully in New York City. Maria is the principal of Prospect Finder, and they specialize in prospect research on high net worth individuals, foundations, and corporations. She trains both through live, in-person seminars and webinars, and she's going to talk about the variety of different ways of prospecting. So she's going to take you through lots of different sources and give you lots of tips and discounts on web vendors. So I'm just going to turn it over to you, Maria.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hopefully everybody can hear me all right. Just type it in or just give me a shout out if you can't hear me well. Otherwise, I'm going to move right through this. My contact information is on the slides, and I believe they will be made available to you as well. So if you have any additional questions afterward, feel free to email me or call me, and hopefully we can get any questions you might have ironed out. So I created this presentation for the nonprofit that really does not have a researcher on staff, but you do have those intermittent prospect research needs, and therefore you need to be able to identify what resources you can get your hands on to do some prospect research, and I try to focus most of my resources as to what you can have access to for free. We will be touching upon some of the fee-based resources today, but even those I will be able to get you some discounts on those as well. So hopefully that will be able to assist you if you do have any type of a budget at all to spend on some databases. And I'd like to start my presentation by talking about where the statistics are in terms of contributions in the United States. So the slide that you see in front of you now, I think is probably familiar to you if you are keeping up with where philanthropy is in the United States. These figures come out annually in the spring. Giving USA is the report that these figures are pulled from. And here's where philanthropy was in the year 2010. It's just under the 300 billion mark, and it did tick down a little bit from the 2009 figures, as one might have expected after the fallout from everything that happened in the last several years. However, the big picture here, and this is a great slide, by the way, to share with your board, especially if your board is of the mind that, we can just ask all of the foundations and corporations in our neighborhood for money. This slide really drives home the point of where the money comes from in the United States, and it is driven very highly by individuals. In fact, when we're taking a look at individuals as prospects, and this is pretty steady even in recessionary times, around 80%, and in 2010 it was 81% of the contributions came from individuals. And where that number comes from is when you lump in together the pieces of the pie that represent individuals and bequests, because of course bequests are coming from individuals. So I do like to reflect it in that way. So when we're talking about increasing our major gifts from individuals, we're talking about creating a culture that is going to set us up for success. So we're looking at somebody's capacity to donate to our organization, but also it's really important to know, do they like to give to your type of cause? So we're looking for those general indicators overall in our prospect research, because we want to be able to have a successful solicitation and more meaningful contributions for your organization. We're talking about really understanding what a donor's mission is here and becoming a life partner for them. So in doing in-depth prospect research on an individual, we're trying to determine how can we engage this person, not just for a one-time gift, but hopefully on multiple-year gifts, significant giving, and it would be wonderful if it turned into a multi-generational relationship for your organization as well. So let's talk about some of the overall basics of research. We gather information as researchers with the one goal of raising money. Okay? So it's important to understand that we may be coming upon a lot of information that is not necessarily relevant to the fundraising process. So it's important to be able to ferret out the information and determine what is really important here. Is this piece of information that we're reading or an article that we're coming upon, is this important in terms of the cultivation and solicitation of the individual? If it's not, then let's leave it off the profile. We have access as researchers, as fundraisers, to two types of information. We have information that's internal to the organization and external. Today we'll be focusing on the external pieces of information that you can gather. But please understand that those internal pieces are very important as well. So any databases that you already have, donor databases and donor data, that's very important because we want to be able to determine how long has somebody been donating to you if they are already donating, and at what levels. So duration and gift levels are important. Internally also, you may have staff that's been with the organization for a very long time. You may have board that has been around or some key volunteers. So they have a lot of great information perhaps in their head, and it hasn't necessarily been translated to your donor database. So that is something that you may want to consider doing as well, is getting some of that information out of the heads of these really key people, because if something were to happen to them, that all that information is gone with them. Okay, so internal and external pieces of information are really important. Today we'll focus on talking about three basic types of prospects. The majority of our conversation will be about individuals, but I will definitely also touch upon corporations and foundations, especially as they relate back to the individuals. And we have, in general, 4 different types of sources of information available to us as researchers. We have print records, which I highly recommend that you do utilize your public libraries nearby to access print resources. They're very expensive, and at this point, with everything being available to us on the internet, I would really recommend that you not invest heavily in print resources. We have electronic, so those would be those fee-based and free resources that we'll talk about today. Public records, and people, going back to the people internally. Let's focus on public records for a moment. It's important to note, I think, at this point, that everything a prospect researcher has available to them in preparing a profile on an individual is available in the public domain. And that's a very important point. We don't have access to credit reports, so we don't know how much debt somebody is carrying. So you'll see as we move through this presentation, I might be able to tell you how much somebody's home is worth, what they paid for their home, the selling price, and also the taxes that they're paying on the property. But I will not know how much debt is being carried on the property, nor will I know how much credit card or other types of loans they may have. So it's really important to know that we don't come up with a very true picture of somebody's net worth, because in order to do that, we need to have that liabilities piece of the equation. So I do like to make sure that people are clear on that from the outset, because the sources that we access are public information sources. So as researchers, what we end up doing is going out and finding information wherever we can in the public domain and pull together all of these puzzle pieces and come up with a concise profile on an individual that should really result in more meaningful gifts for both the institution and the donor. And what I mean here is, if you are researching somebody, or let's say you're thinking of approaching somebody for a gift, you haven't done any research, the board says, well, you know, I think we can probably ask this person for a $10,000 gift, and that would be great if they could donate $10,000 to us. And let's say you haven't done any research, and had you done the research, you would have realized that this person is capable because they have made other donations at, say, the $50,000 level. So you could end up leaving $40,000 on the table because it's probably not too likely that they're going to suggest a higher number than what you put on the table. On the flip side, however, if you ask for a number that is way out of the range of what somebody is comfortable in making a gift for, they're really going to wonder where you pulled that number from and what would make you possibly think that they could afford to do such a gift. So here we're going to be thinking about what has somebody done for other organizations, what is a comfortable gift level for them, maybe even a little bit of a stretch gift, but yet very meaningful for both parties. Let's talk about some of the components of an individual's profile. Prospect's name and date of birth. Now, prospect's name, that might seem really, you know, well, of course we need the person's name, but it's important to have the correct spelling of their name before you begin your prospect research. You're off by one letter and your search results are going to be vastly different, as you well know from making a typo in just doing a Google search on anything. So starting off with the correct name, if you have a middle initial or a middle name, knowing if somebody is a junior or a senior, that's important as well. And I indicate date of birth if there's anything that alludes to somebody's age, that we note that as well. It could really help us in determining if somebody is a planned giving prospect, for example. So you would want to note their date of birth. Their primary residence and their secondary residences. We would want to note any of those addresses. And so if you have that at the outset, it's going to be fairly easy to research. Otherwise, if you at least know the name of the person and the town they live in, you can probably easily find their full address. We want to find with those addresses both the assessed and market values of the residences. And as I said, I usually like to take it a step further and see what the taxes are on the property, because I do think it's very telling if somebody has a high tax bill and is able to maintain the taxes that they have on that particular property. We take a look at their business affiliation and any relevant information on the business. So I'm not talking about really in-depth business evaluations here. I'm talking about just basic information. How many people are employed there? Are they in a sector that's doing well right now? What are the sales? Have they gone up or down in recent years? So really just basic information on the business. And we'll talk about some of the resources that you can go to find that information. Their marital status and children, if you can find those pieces, are great to have. Again, thinking back to those internal sources, your board, your staff, your volunteers, they may have access to, because they know the people, they may have access to that information quite readily and will be able to fill you in on this. Why do we want to know about children? I like to note the children if they're, and if we have them, approximate ages of the children, because we like to know at what stage somebody is at in their lives. Are we talking about somebody who has a few children in college, at which point it might be a terrible time to ask them for a capital campaign gift? Are they people with very young children? And maybe you're an organization that serves a younger child population, and they would certainly understand everything that that children need and the types of services, et cetera. And so they might make an excellent prospect for you because of the fact that they have young children themselves. So really kind of, if you're able to find that information, it's great to include it on the profile. Insider stock holdings. This is a really fun category. Insider stock holdings, let me explain what a corporate insider is. When you have a public company, let's say AT&T, and if somebody is considered a corporate insider with AT&T, they need to report all of their trading activity of AT&T stock to the Securities and Exchange Commission. Once they do that, it becomes part of public record. So let me talk about who falls into that corporate insider category. If you are one of the top officers of a public company, it's usually about the top 5 or 6 people in the company, you must report all your trading activity. If you sit on the board of directors of the public company, again, you must report it all. And you must report if you own 10% or more of the outstanding stock of the company. If you fall into one of those 3 categories, you will be reporting all your trading activity in that stock to the SEC. And the time frame for doing so is 3 days. So if I were an insider for AT&T, certainly by the weekend, if I traded today being a Wednesday, I would have to definitely report it by Friday or Monday. I think it's 3 business days. So I would have to report it by then. Why are we interested in those insider stocks? We're interested because that might be an excellent gift opportunity for your organization. If they have appreciated securities, it might be easier for them to gift those securities to your organization. So definitely, if you're not set up to accept gifts of stock, please consider getting set up to do that. Talk to somebody on your board, talk to your accountant, or maybe you have someone on your board who's affiliated with the financial services industry, and they can advise you on getting that set up. But you do want to be able to do that so that you can take the stock in, sell it. It's a tax advantage for the individual donating the stock, and I won't get into all of the benefits in terms of the tax situation, but there is a benefit to them if they donate that. Now, board memberships, again here, if somebody sits on a corporate board, knowing that, then you know to look for that insider stock, right? So a corporate board membership is important to know about from the insider stock point of view, but also if the person is on a corporate board and that corporation has a company foundation or a corporate matching program, again there, that match might extend to corporate board members. So definitely make a notation on the profile if they sit on any public corporations boards. On the nonprofit side, we want to know if they're affiliated with any boards because that's where they're spending their valuable time and efforts. So we want to make sure that we capture that information and check out websites, annual reports, etc., of any place they might be serving or have recently served on a nonprofit board, because we'll want to be able to note what were the levels of gifts if it has been publicly announced. Their foundation affiliations, perhaps they have a family foundation, perhaps they sit on another friend's foundation as a trustee, or they're part of a community foundation. So it would be important to note if they are directing their philanthropy through a foundation as opposed to their overall, personal checkbook. Their philanthropic interests. This used to be a much harder piece of the puzzle to find, but as more and more nonprofit websites themselves become more sophisticated and list links to their annual reports as a PDF, or perhaps they're listing their entire board of trustees on the website, this information becomes a little bit easier to find now, and generally a Google search will pick that up pretty easily. Aircraft and boats, these are both part of public record. So the Federal Aviation Administration does maintain a searchable directory of anybody or a company that owns aircraft, so you can definitely search to see if they happen to own a personal aircraft. Also, with regard to boats, the U.S. Coast Guard maintains a documented vessels directory. And to search that, you would need either the name of the boat or the hull identification number. Generally, you won't have that piece of information available to you. What you'll have is the name of the person, and you're interested in finding out, do they own a yacht? So you can go to a very inexpensive resource called boatinfoworld.com. And it's one of the resources, I believe it's listed on a later slide as well, boatinfoworld.com, and you can search by a person's name there. It's a very low-cost database and something that would be easily searchable. Any past giving history to your organization should become part of that overall profile. Again, here we're looking for levels of gifts and longevity, their commitment to your organization. And really any relevant information that would be useful to you while cultivating and soliciting an individual. So if you come across pieces of information that are not necessarily relevant, then perhaps you would want to exclude that information. And this is probably a good time to mention to you that a donor or a donor prospect has the capacity to walk in and has the right to walk into your office at any time and ask to see their donor records. So it's really important that if you are typing anything into a prospect profile or your donor software, put your investigative reporter hat on and write this profile in such a way that you would have no problem at all in handing this over to them. So you don't want any subjective statements in there, and keep it all very, very businesslike. That would be my suggestion.
So, Maria, I forgot to review with you. How would you like to take questions? Will you pause periodically, or should people just chime in when they have a question?
I think if anybody has a question, they can chime in at this time before I start delving into what the sources are that we use as researchers to gather all this great information. So if there are any questions, go ahead.
Okay, so I guess no questions
Okay.
right now.
No questions right now. That's great. Board members, let's talk about them as sources. We've already touched upon that. Those are those great internal sources of information. They may be able to really flesh out some information that you're having difficulty finding. Maybe you think a prospect is married, but you're not quite certain, and a board member might just have that answer right, at the tip of their tongue and say, oh yes, they've been married for 30 years, and so at least you can, make a notation that the prospect is married. If you have the name of the spouse, that's helpful as well. Newspapers are a terrific resource. Many of the newspapers are searchable online now, so don't think that you have to have a subscription to tons of newspapers to be able to do your research. You can search them online directly. Some will make the articles available to you for free. Some make just the search results available free, and then you want to have to pay maybe a $2 or $3 cost to see the entire article. But also thinking about entering these portals for your newspapers through your library website. So again, here a plug for our public libraries. Many of them have databases available that you can access with your library card right from your desktop. And generally, the local newspapers is one of those resources that you can access with your library card. So you can search for a person's name or their business in the local papers and see what has been printed about them there. Electronic screening companies, if you suspect that you have some real great hidden golden nuggets in your database, Or if you just have a very large database and you're not quite sure where to start, because certainly looking inward first, finding more information on the people who are already committed to your organization is the place to start. Instead of prospecting outside of your current donor database, let's think about who are the people already engaged, already love our mission and our organization, and how can we think about engaging them in a way to elevate them further. So there are electronic screening companies that will help you identify who some of those gems may be in that database. They're going to, in one fell swoop, they will take that name and they will screen it a bunch of wealth identification databases, and we'll talk about some of these companies, but they will help elevate for you some of the names that you may want to consider profiling further and engaging at a much higher level in terms of cultivation and solicitation. Print resources, I already talked about how you would want to definitely use your local library for those print resources. We'll touch upon the internet and fee-based resources today, and some of the public records, in addition to tax assessment records, as I mentioned earlier, proxy statements. Those are issued by public corporations once a year. They are known as a proxy. They're known as the notice of annual meeting of shareholders. It's also known by a specific number within the SEC's documents. It's called the DEF 14A. So that is the specific filing within the SEC. It's filed once a year, and they're chock full of great information. So if you have somebody who is a corporate insider because they are one of the top officers in the company, let's say you're talking about the president, back for a 3-year period, in addition to what they hold in terms of stock for that company. So you're going to get a great snapshot on somebody's salary and stock holdings if they are listed in the proxy statement. And they're very easy to search. They're huge documents, but you would just do an easy search for the word, and you would search for the person's last name and see wherever they pop up in the document. Now let's talk about corporations for a moment. It's important to determine what is the link to your organization. Why would you want to consider approaching this corporation? Is the link that you have a personnel type of a link? Maybe you have a board member who's employed at that corporation. Is it a geographic link, or is it something mission related? Maybe you are a women's health and counseling center, and you're thinking of approaching some of the local pharmaceutical companies that deal in feminine products. So this might be the mission-related link to your organization. When we're talking about researching public companies versus private companies, it's important to note that the data that you can access on both those companies does vary greatly. So from the outset, knowing this, you'll know that the information on public companies is much more in-depth and vast, and public companies must report it. They're required by law to report data on their companies. Private companies, on the other hand, are private. So they are not required to do any of the same level of reporting. And so simply being able to know this at reported, and it's not required to be accurate. So you may want to make a notation of that when you're pulling together your private company information. It's very important as a fundraiser to know whether there's a corporate giving program in place or a corporate foundation. Really being able to understand where is philanthropy in this corporation. If it's a smaller company, they may just have this designated under their marketing budget in some way. So it's important to know which pot this is coming from and who is controlling that pot of money. So you'll be able to know who to make a connection to. Again, here are people giving to people, developing relationships. Very important to know if anybody in your organization is in any way affiliated with that corporation. Who's going to get you in the door? Who's going to make that entree so that it's not a cold proposal? It would be great if your proposal was able to get in the door. I know this is not always possible, but if there's any way that it can be warmed up through an introduction, that would be wonderful. And again here, just knowing the general financial data, sales, number of employees. If it's a public company, go to a site like Yahoo Finance and just find out where their stock history has been. Has it been plunging in the last year, or has it been on the rise in the last year? So just understanding their general stock history is important. And then knowing this information, armed with this, when you have an appointment to go in and see a corporation, if it's been several weeks or a month or two since you researched that corporation, if you are lucky enough to get an appointment with somebody inside of a corporation, I would highly recommend that you at least research news on that company before approaching them. They may have had something really great recently happen to them, or really terrible happen to them. So it's important to know, and it's an ability for you to have a talking point. So if this company you're approaching is a pharmaceutical. Let's say they've had a new drug approved by the FDA. Wouldn't it be great to walk in and have that as a talking point? And this way, it also gives that corporate officer the opportunity to know that you've done your homework, you understand this company, and you're interested in them as well. Let's talk about researching foundations. A little bit more clear-cut and dry, I think, because there are resources that compile this, and they report everything to the IRS on a 990 PF form. So it's a lot easier to be able to determine, do your foundation's interests match your organization's missions, programs, and goals? So understanding, do they give to your type of organization at the outset would hopefully save you a lot of time and effort in approaching that foundation. Again, a personal link to a trustee would be great to know about, especially if they give to pre-selected organizations only. You can find all of the pertinent information you need. You have assets, trustee names, application guidelines, deadlines. Those are really important to know. Understand where those deadlines are. And I heard a foundation panel speak once, and they all seemed to be in agreement that they did not like seeing foundation proposals arriving in their offices on via like a FedEx, an overnight type of service. They felt that was a terrible waste of the nonprofit's money. So I pass along that tip to you. If you can, please make sure you budget in enough time to have that foundation proposal arrive through the mail. Conversely, a number of foundations are now going to an online giving format only. So please understand, if they want it online only, that is the only way you should be approaching them, because you will automatically get disqualified should you not follow their guidelines. If they publish the guidelines, they do expect you to follow them. And I find when I'm doing foundation research now that so many foundations have taken the extra step of actually getting their own websites up. So it's a great place for you to get current information. If they've put any of their giving on hold for any reason, or if they've shifted priorities in terms of where they want to give in the future, you can pull all that information right off their website. So they will definitely expect that you will have exhausted all of the resources in researching them. So please, please do so.
Maria, if there's an email address, would you recommend sending it to the email address, or mail is a better way of doing it?
Well, if they have, again, I would just follow whatever their guidelines are. If they want the application sent by email, then definitely do it as an email. However, if they don't provide anything in terms of an online format, then I would snail mail it to them.
Got it.
Now, understanding whether or not they even accept applications or they've decided they're giving to pre-selected organizations, there is actually a little box about 3/4 of the way down on the page 4 of their 990. And that box is checked off saying that they give to pre-selected organizations only. That's your cue to stop. Do not approach that foundation, please, until you've done a couple of things. See if you have a trustee, a personal connection. If you feel that your program so clearly matches every goal and mission that the page letter of inquiry that very succinctly describes what it is you would like to apply for. But don't put a lot of effort into preparing a full-blown proposal if they have clearly stated at the outset that they've given to pre-selected organizations only. Now, one of the resources that you can use for foundation research is GuideStar. So hopefully all of you are already using this, but what I want to point out is that they have an advanced search feature, their premium level of service, which costs the average person, Jerry or I, $1,000 to use, but it would be available to you and your nonprofit organization for free. And I'm going to tell you how to do that. You have the capacity as a nonprofit to maintain your own nonprofit's profile within GuideStar. And this benefits you greatly because as donors are getting more and more sophisticated and looking to do their own research on you, this is very well one of the places that they're going to look for information. Yes, they'll probably go to Charity Navigator as well, but you can't have any influence on Charity Navigator in terms of your data, but you can on GuideStar. You can go in there, look at your GuideStar report, and do an update to it. And if you agree to help and maintain and update your own profiles, they will make access to you available at this premium search level. So there's a place where you can put in a little narrative about your organization. That's a great spot for your little tug at your heartstring type of story, your success story. If you have something in your financials that you feel should be explained, that's the spot to do it. Also, please make sure that the current Board of Trustees is listed accurately. So this is all very beneficial to you. If you help to maintain all of that, they'll give you this advanced search feature. Now, what can you do with this search feature? So for nonprofits who are saying, gee, I would love to find more family foundations in my geographic community that we serve. It'd be great to connect with more of them. Well, through GuideStar, you can actually do that. You can set up an advanced search feature to find family foundations, and you put in your zip code, and you decide how many miles outside of that zip code of a radius that you would like to search for family foundations. You'll come up with a list and then decide which of those foundations you want to take a closer look at. You can delve into the 990s, pull together their trustee names, and imagine walking into a development committee meeting, and instead of asking, gee, does anybody have any connections to a family foundation in our community, wouldn't it be better for you to proactively pull together this list of family foundations with trustee names associated with them, put that on the table, and then say to the development committee, I've identified 56 new family foundations in our community. I'd like for you to take a look at the list, take a look at the trustee names. Does anybody recognize these names and be willing to facilitate an introduction? That meeting, I guarantee you, will go much differently than the former situation that I just described to you. Does anybody have any questions at this point? No? Clear?
I have to say that your timing, Maria, is perfect. I'm the chair of the fundraising committee of a board that I'm on, and we're going to be talking about how we're moving forward with fundraising. So I'm going to be bringing up some of these points at our meeting tonight.
Okay, great. Well, it's free for the taking, so it's all there. Another resource that I subscribe to and I like to use is foundationsearch.com. I really like the search functionality for this particular service. They have something called a director connections, which is the ability for you to pictorially identify, let's say I'm researching Jerry Stengel, and she sits on maybe multiple foundation boards. It would pictorially show me, like a little diagram, a little stick figure of Jerry, and then shooting off of that, it kind of shows you all of the foundations that Jerry is connected to, and then you can click through on each of those foundations and find all the names of those trustees as well. So again, here, if you're in a mode of trying to develop relationships and understanding where else people are connected in the foundation world, this is a terrific resource to do that. And I also like they have a new foundation alert service. So if you want to stay abreast of the new foundations coming into your state, you set up the alert service, and they will email you when a new foundation has registered in your state. So hopefully that will give you a little bit of a leg up in terms of being able to approach that foundation, kind of be first in the door, introduce yourselves, send some information about your organizations, etc. So new foundations are being formed all the time. That activity has not slowed down. Well, I don't know, maybe it's slowed down a little bit, I'm not sure, but it's definitely still occurring. This service would just, you put it on autopilot and it just pushes the information out to you. Now, if you have no money to spend, because foundationsearch.com is a fee-based service, and there is that's one of the vendor offers that you'll see on one of the later slides. But if you have no money to spend at all on a resource, you can go to the Foundation Center either in New York, or there are cooperating collections throughout the entire country of the data that's available at the Foundation Center to do research. They also have their fee-based Foundation Directory Online is available from these cooperating collections. So if you have no money to spend at all on how to do prospect research on foundations, you might consider going and setting aside maybe one day a month or so, or a half day. That's probably all you'd really need. And sitting down and getting very strategic about doing that foundation research. Just put it on your calendar, get yourself over there. They've got reference staff that is well-versed in how to utilize the Foundation Center's products, so you'll be able to get some guided help if you need it as well. So that's an excellent way for you to get some foundation research done for free. Some of the sample print resources, and again, remember, I'm talking about using these in a library. Marquis Who's Who. So this company will send out solicitations, if you will, to people and ask, can we profile you in our directory? And so all of the information in a Who's Who profile is self-provided by the individual, and it's a really great resource. It's available both in an online format, in a CD-ROM as well. But if somebody has listed themselves in Who's Who in America, you'll be able to find quite a bit of information on them. In fact, very often, believe it or not, they even will provide their mother's maiden name. So this is great for genealogical research, but I kind of get worried about the identity thieves who might be considering using this resource just to get the mother's maiden names.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
A little scary.
Yeah, but you know what? I've researched so many corporate executives who are listed in Who's Who, and there it is, their mother's maiden name.
Wow.
So,
I'm going to stop using that as a password,
yeah,
with the security key.
Right, and because that's what it is in most credit card and banking situations. Standard & Poor's, great resource to be able to do corporate and business research. Dun & Bradstreet is really one of the preeminent resource providers on information for private companies. So you remember earlier I said that private company information was a little bit more difficult to come by, but Dun & Bradstreet really does their best at trying to put this information out there. Again, it's in print resources at the library. It's accessible to you also in an online format. Ward's Business Directory also does a lot of private and public information. And don't forget about your local chambers. The businesses that are affiliated with your chambers, there are directories. If they're not in a hard copy format, they're certainly going to be available. I know I'm part of the Somerset County Business Partnership, and our membership is searchable on the website for the business partnership. So don't forget about that as a way to research people, but also potentially prospect for some new donors and volunteers and board members. And if you talk with a reference librarian, especially about what you're trying to do, the types of lists you're trying to put together, they're going to really be very helpful to you. So if you haven't been to your library in a while, this might be a good time to go. Let's talk about some of the fee-based online resources. iWave.com has a company called PRO, Prospect Research Online. And what they've done is they have taken several expensive databases and put them all under their one roof. So you can go to iWave.com and have access to these multiple databases. They have excellent product demo tutorials and so forth. They have the whole thing set up actually on YouTube, so you can get an idea of what their product is. And they are actually one of the special vendor offers that is accessible to you as part of this webinar. So iWave is very useful. Two of the resources that I use within iWave that I find particularly helpful, they have a donations database that you can research. So you can research it by somebody's name to find out if they've appeared in any PDF annual reports of nonprofits. But also you can kind of do a little bit of a reverse search where you can research the name of a nonprofit and find the donor lists that are affiliated with that nonprofit. So if you're a small, again going back to maybe a small community services health organization, you might be interested in finding out who's giving to some of the larger hospitals or cancer societies or heart associations in your community. And so very often iWave, through their donations database, will be able to get that. Now, they don't have research done on those individuals, but at least it gives you a starting point of some lists that, again, you can potentially circulate with your board. FoundationSearch.com we just touched upon. That is a fee-based resource. Wealth Engine. So Wealth Engine is another service that I utilize. They are one of the companies that will also do a screening. So we talked about an electronic screening earlier to be able to elevate for you the names that you should be focusing on for cultivating and solicitation of major gifts. And so in addition to doing a full-blown screening, they also have a database that you can tap into on a name-by-name basis. And I believe that they make it available, although you want to speak with a representative directly about this. I think they make the database available for a year after your screening is done, which is particularly useful because if you have, if you're an active organization in terms of doing events throughout the year. You're going to have new names associated with those events of attendees, so you may want to run those names through Wealth Engine on a name-by-name basis. eTapestry, this is a donor database which is it is available password protected on the internet. So instead of your donor database residing on a computer or a networked set of computers within your offices, eTapestry may certainly be something you want to consider looking into. If you're ready to move from keeping your databases in some sort of a Access or Excel spreadsheet format and you're ready to move up in the world, you can take a look at this. And what I really love about eTapestry is that they certainly understand that even the smallest of nonprofits deserves to have a good, solid donor database. So if you have under 500 donor records, if you're brand new, starting out nonprofit, you too can have access to this actually for free. So under 500 donor records. So I really like their philosophy. I like the product, and I would recommend that you at least take a look at it as an alternative. 10K Wizard is something that I utilize for doing my research related to any SEC documents, anything with the Securities and Exchange Commission. And yes, I can go to the sec.gov website directly and do my research there. I find it cumbersome, however. I find it's worth paying for a resource that allows me to have the data output in a very clear, concise format. Me to have a resource that is going to have the information compiled in a very thorough way. Let's talk about just some overall internet sites that we may want to consider bookmarking. LinkedIn, and I'm going to talk about this more in depth next, but LinkedIn absolutely, hands down, one of the best places that I love to go to do prospect research. Anybody that I'm researching, I run it through LinkedIn. I'll show you on some slides coming up how to use the advanced search feature to find and prospect for new people as well. Now, this resource is specific to New Jersey residents. However, a similar resource will probably exist in your state. I know it exists in New York and Pennsylvania, for example, and I think I've found it in Connecticut as well. This is a resource run by the New Jersey Library System. It's called qandanewjersey.org. And what this does, I mean, this blows people's minds when I tell them about this. This gives you 24 hours a day, 7-day accessibility to a reference librarian. So you get into a chat mode with a reference librarian. You pose your question. They immediately answer you back. If they cannot find the answer to your question, they will bump your question up to the state library level and generally email you back with an answer within 24 hours. So this is a free service. I like to point it out, again, giving our public libraries a plug. The funding, I believe, is still in place for this, last I checked. But definitely look into finding out if your state offers this. And you can find that by just going to your state library level, your main state libraries website, and it will usually be there. I know New York Public Library, nypl.org. There's a link right from their homepage to be able to get into a chat with a reference librarian. So this is a terrific resource to know about. Google, of course, is my favorite search engine. It's interesting. I'm going to be doing I'm a regular on a nonprofit-related radio show, and I was thinking about for an upcoming episode, I'm going to be talking about Google and some additional search engines and how they compare to each other. But I still really love Google. I would recommend that if you can, please understand how to utilize Google to really narrow down and focus your search results, because it can be quite overwhelming. So let's say, again, using Jerry Stengel, why not? Let's say I'm researching Jerry, and I'm interested in finding out, let's say I know everything about Ventuneer and her business affiliations, and what I can't seem to get my hands on is information related to Jerry as far as her nonprofit affiliations. So there's actually a way on the advanced search page of Google to be able to say to Google, you know what, filter me back those hits where Jerry Stengel is mentioned that are related to a .org, .org, or to a .edu. So that will tell me any place where Jerry's name is appearing on a nonprofit website. That may be all I need to find some of her nonprofit board affiliations. Also, if Jerry's made a big donation to her alma mater, let's say she's had a building or a wing named after her or some other significant donation, and the .edu organization has decided to issue a press release about it, I'll be able to pick it up right there as well. NJBiz, I mentioned this one again, even though it's New Jersey specific. The reason why I bring it up is to make sure that you're somehow tied into a publication on a subscription basis or through their website, to being able to identify business resources that are able to really give you a good pulse of what's going on in the business community. You know, as dire as things sound sometimes, there still are pockets that are doing very well, and usually these business publications are only too happy to profile these successful businesses and the business owners behind them. So I actually have daily alerts sent out to me for free from njbiz.com. I do get the weekly paper as well. Annual books of lists. So they will profile for you the top companies in a variety of sectors right across the board. So I know that my publication is roughly $70 a year, I think, for this subscription, and very well worth it. I think that the book of lists alone is probably worth that money. Cranes, New York, if you are if you're looking to keep up with what's going on in the New York business community, this is an excellent resource. And the Federal Election Commission, FEC.gov. So anybody who makes a political donation of $250 or more is listed in the Federal Election Commission's website. Um, and what they say, though, is this particular website is not allowed to be used for solicitation of any kind. So it is one of the resources that I touch upon just to see if somebody is making major political donations. Sometimes that can be important for a nonprofit to know about, especially if your organization is politically charged in any way. But also, I think, again, it's just giving us an indicator of general donations and wealth of an individual if we can determine if they're giving a lot of political money away. MyCentralJersey.com happens to be a compilation of several New Jersey newspapers. Again, here, bringing this up for you because they have something tied into them, and other states do as well. So your newspaper sites may have something called Data Universe. And in Data Universe, you can have access to quite a number of public records related to your state. So it's a really great portal for you to gain access to quite a number of public records. So I access it through mycentraljersey.com. The public records that I utilize the most through that website, through Data Universe, would be related to property records. So let's say you're a nonprofit that knows which specific streets there may be some wealthier individuals living on. You all can picture those streets. I know you can in your heads. And you have a difficult time trying to determine, well, who resides in all of those McMansions. So you can actually put in a street name in a specific town, and it's going to give you all the homeowners on that street. It'll give you their name, their address, what the properties are worth, what they paid for them, what they're paying in taxes. So right there would give you, if you were looking to, I don't know, invite all of those people perhaps to an upcoming event or something, that might be a way for you to gain access to people who live on specific streets. Let's talk about LinkedIn. I mentioned it earlier. It's one of my favorite websites to go to. I like it for a number of reasons, but also because it has a lot of free information. You can find and prospect out for some new donors, volunteers, and board members. So in addition to being able to research a specific person on LinkedIn, you can also use their advanced search feature to prospect out and start expanding your net, if you will, and looking for some new people. The way you do this is through the through the search box. So if you have the name of an individual, you can go ahead and type in their name in that box. Just make sure that the little word to the left does say people. But then I don't know if you see this here. You have here an advanced search tab, and that is what's going to get you the ability to really get some great prospecting done. So on that advanced search tab, if you click on that, you gain access to this page here. Now this is all free. This is not under a premium level of LinkedIn. This is free. What we can do then is take a look at all of these various fields that we can type in and look for people. Now, I'm going to be showing you a specific search, an example search, but I point out here for school, if you come from a very strong alma mater, you may want to consider prospecting by other people who have graduated from your school, because there is also a natural affinity for you to be connected and to speak. But you can prospect in specific industries. Any place where you see this little in symbol, this is at the premium level of search. But I'm telling you, try and do this in a free format, and you'll be very surprised at what you're able to find out. Let's say I'm doing a search. I went to Rutgers. So let's say I'm a nonprofit executive, and I'm in need of finding more people near my community. Okay, so I happen to be in postal code 08807. Let's say I'm willing to go out about a 25-mile radius from this zip code to look for a potential new board member. And I'd like to be able to have some connection to this person already. Let's say I'd like to see who's graduated from Rutgers within a 25-mile radius. And I'm checking off here with LinkedIn, please return to me the hits of people who are in the accounting field. I'm also telling LinkedIn to focus down those searches, the search results, to the people that I'm either first degree connected to, so that's a direct connection. Second degree connected to, that means there's only one person that stands between us, or perhaps somebody where I share a group connection on LinkedIn. So I like to focus it down to those three areas. You can check off whatever boxes you like the best, but I would recommend that you not leave it at all LinkedIn members, because the search results might be somewhat overwhelming for you. In my particular case, the search results yielded 157 results. So that's a pretty great pool for me to look at if I were a nonprofit executive looking for a new board member in the accounting field. And this is an opportunity for you to take a look at some of these people. It's going to list for you the people you are first degree connected to, and then second degree, and so on. But the important thing to note here is that these people could be potential great board members for you. And you wouldn't have found them in such an instantaneous way without having LinkedIn. And I point out that I have quite a number of people that I'm connected to on LinkedIn. I'm actually connected to over 500 people, probably pushing about 900 at this point. And these search results are completely tailored and based to my profile. So your search results are going to be very different. So I have a lot of connections on LinkedIn. That means that it's pretty likely that I can run a search and come up with a very robust result. So for those of you who are a little bit shy about accepting connections and so forth, this alone might be an argument for you to try and connect with more people on LinkedIn. It's going to help your prospecting efforts. Now, for free, LinkedIn, let's say that search that I just did, the accountants, 25-mile radius, Rutgers, that search can be saved within LinkedIn, and it will run the search either never, weekly, or monthly. Now, if I decide that I want them to run the search weekly for me and send me the results, then that's great. That puts it on autopilot. It sends you the results, gives you an opportunity to go ahead and have those results emailed to you, and puts it on autopilot and gives you the opportunity to review those results. So if you're thinking that you're just not going to be disciplined enough to go in here and do this search from time to time on your own, let LinkedIn do it for you. Even if you set it to that monthly basis to start with, they're going to allow you to save up to 3 searches for free, 3 tailored searches. So something for you to consider doing. Now, groups on LinkedIn could be particularly useful for you, and you can use that search box, again, changing the search to the drop-down menu of the word groups. You can take a look, you can search for groups based on the group names or a general category you're interested in. And also, another way to find new groups might be to take a look at your first degree connections, what groups they've joined, and they might just be a really great group for you to think about joining as well. I'm seeing a question from Stephen about how looking at accountants from Rutgers in a 25-mile radius makes someone a board prospect. One needs to see wealth, common interest, etc., to make this a viable candidate. So yes, I mean, what I would say is that for those candidates that you can take a look at and connect with, make a connection on LinkedIn, certainly you're going to want to take this a step further. This is just a tool for you to potentially identify some new people, but you're going to want to do whatever you can to take that relationship a few steps further. So obviously setting up a time to call them, perhaps setting up a time when you can meet with them, and that was why I set that radius at a comfortable 25 miles, so that if there were someone that I wanted to meet with in person, you would be able to do that. Now, in terms of seeing wealth, LinkedIn is not going to give you that piece of information.
Maria, I just want to interrupt for a second and just talk about, because Stephen talked about having common interests. The engineer, LinkedIn has added a new feature on its profile, and that allows people to talk about their volunteer interests. So that may be one way of identifying people interested in your cause. So it may be a different organization that they've volunteered for, but be similar to your cause, and that could be a pre-qualifier for you. So there are new ways of, not so much searching, but new um, um, parts of the profile that will allow you to get a little deeper into um, um, a person's passion and interests, so that they will bubble up higher on your list.
Right, and I'm glad you brought that up, Jerry, because I think it's important for the nonprofits listening in on this call to also encourage their own board members to list that they are affiliated with this particular nonprofit as a board member. Again, it's another opportunity for getting the organization's name out there. And as ambassadors for your organizations, hopefully they would have no problem or no qualms at all with wanting to list this affiliation on their website, on their LinkedIn profile on the website. So in order to see common interest, that's a great place. But I started talking about wealth. LinkedIn is not going to give you information related to somebody's wealth. Again, sometimes a nonprofit board member doesn't necessarily have to have a lot of wealth. They might be a center of influence in the community. So it really depends on what you're looking for to fill on your board. But for looking for wealth, let's say we identify 5 candidates that you think could be pretty viable. You can then take those people and screen them further against some of the other tools that I mentioned to try and determine a level of wealth. If nothing else, just take a look at if you can identify where they reside, try and find an indicator of wealth. Might be their real estate, the house that they live in. So if you look at nothing else, running their name through Google and